Hi, hello. Today we are demonstrating the complete Minnesota dexterity test. All right, so the first test that we're showing is the placing test. So the object of this test is to see how fast you can put the discs from the top board into the holes of the bottom board using only one hand. You will want to use your dominant hand. You must begin on your right. So you're going to be picking up the bottom disc and inserting it into the top hole of the board closest to you. Now, you must pick up the next disc above the empty hole on the first board, and so in the right column. You will move from right to left on this test. Once you complete one column, repeat the previous sequence in the second column until you have filled the entire bottom board. You may hold the board with your free hand if you wish to do so. Do you remember the order in which you pick up the discs and place them down?
Yes.
Right. You must make sure that all of the discs are fully inserted into the holes of the board before the trial is complete. If you drop the disc, you must pick it up and insert it into the proper hole before time is stopped. Your score will be the total number of seconds it takes to complete several trials. We will record the time for each trial separately. When you finish one trial, you must rearrange the boards into the starting position before starting another trial. Please do not touch the discs until you hear further instruction. Are you ready?
Yes.
Put your hand on the first disc. Ready? Go. Awesome. Good job. So the second test that we're doing is the turning test. So this one just needs one, actually. All right. So the object of the turning test is to see how fast you can pick up the discs with one hand, turn them with the other hand, and replace the discs back into the holes on the board. With your left hand, pick up the block from the upper right-hand corner. There. Turn the disc while passing it to your right hand and return it to the bottom of the original hole in the board with the bottom side facing up. You must work to your left across the board on the top row. So now with your right hand, pick up the first block in the second row. Turn the disc while passing it to your left hand and return it into the original hole with the bottom side facing up. You will work to your right until you complete the entire row. As you work back to the left in the third row, you will use your left hand to pick up the disc and your right hand to return it. Working back to your right on the fourth row, you must use your right hand to pick up the disc and your left hand to return it. Does that make sense? All right, cool. You must make sure that all of the discs are fully inserted into the holes of the board before the trial is complete. If you drop a disc, you must pick it up and insert it into the proper hole before the time is stopped. You ready? Put your left hand on the disc in the top right-hand corner of the board. Ready? Go. Stop. Nice job. You're fast. All right, so the third test is still going. All right, cool. The third test is the displacing test. So we're going to start by removing the disc from the upper left-hand corner and put it to the side. This is the starting position for the displacing test. The object of the test is to see how fast you can move the blocks from one hole to another. You can use either hand for this test. So you're going to be filling the top hole with the disc directly below it. Now this leaves the second hole in the first column empty. Then fill this empty hole with the disc directly below it and keep doing this until the bottom hole in the first column is empty. Now fill the bottom hole with the bottom disc from the second column. In the second column, keep filling each empty hole with the disc above it until the top hole is empty. Fill the top hole in the second column with the disc directly to the right in the third column and continue moving the discs in the manner until you have worked across the whole board. Put your hand on the disc just below the empty hole in the left-hand corner of the board. Ready? Go. Stop. Nice job. All right, so we got 2 more tests. The 4th test is the one-hand turning and placing test, so it's a combination of the 2 tests. So the object of the test is to see how fast you can pick up the discs from the top board, turn the discs over, thus showing the color of the other disc, and placing them into the holes of the bottom board. This is to be done using only one hand, and you will want to use your dominant hand. So you must begin on your right, picking up the bottom disc and inserting it into the top hole of the board closest to you, while turning the disc over to expose the other color. Now you must pick up the next disc above the empty hole on the first board, and so in the right column. You will move from right to left on this test. Once you complete one column, repeat the previous sequence in the second column until you have filled the entire board. You may hold the board with your free hand if you wish to do so. Are you ready?
Yeah.
Put your hand on the first disc. Ready? Go. Nicely done. All right. Our last test is a 2-hand turning and placing test. So it's the same starting position as the one hand. The object of this test is to see how fast you can pick up the discs from the top board 2 at a time, so 1 in each hand, turn the discs over, thus showing the other color of the disc, and placing them into the holes on the bottom board. This is to be done using both hands. So you must begin on your right, pick up the bottom discs in the first column, and insert them into the top 2 holes in the first column of the board closest to you, while turning the discs over to expose the other color. Now you must pick up the next 2 discs above the empty holes on the top board, and so in the right column. You will move from the right to the left on this test. Once you complete one column, repeat the previous sequence in the next columns until you have filled the entire bottom board. Once again, you may hold the board with your free hand if you wish to do so. Are you ready?
Mm-hmm.
Put your hand on the first disc and go. Awesome. Nice work.
Thank you.
And that is the end of the complete Minnesota Dexterity test.